Say, man, and we putting down real game right now, man. We got the young king, man, Maki. He doing what he do, man. He talking shit and swallowing spit. So if y'all ain't with us, y'all against us. If you ain't up with the cause, you down with the fools. So look, right now, and we finna break this shit down, man. We giving y'all a great game,
man, you already know what the
so,
fuck
hey, man, quit playing with them and do what you do.
Whoa, it's the Plug Podcast. I'ma tell the truth and give a fuck, get mad. Widow in the chat, and we always on the gas. If I let the bass drop, it will leave you on your ass. Do it how we wanna do it. All my niggas, they been through it. Tired to see my people lose it. The world lost in confusion. I'ma take you about the life that I've been living. In a free world, I ain't tryna go to prison. They wanna see me victim and a part of the statistics. God got me right, cause he know I'm on a mission. Niggas tapping out, giving in to submission. I really gotta get it like I caught a new addiction. Baby, this me, I'm a fucking new addition. Boy, you ain't real, you a fucking contradiction. Trying to get my generation right, I ain't lying. Moving how I move every day, I ain't dying. The blind lead the blind and they lost in the island. You talk about a rapper and I'm talking about a child. Mama told me to stick to my senses. Come out the shelf and don't remain victim. Get what you get outside and get bigger. Pain is a presence deep in my root. Jaw dropping jewels, Mr. Smith dropping jewels. Big Mac out in Canada, we ain't known to play cool. I ain't trying to see a transformer in my kid's school. I got Kane by my side if a nigga wanna do it. Let the bass drop, make it face drop. I ain't changed, I grew up, grow up, or don't show up, We out in the world making changes. You on the internet talking. We out in the world making changes. You on the internet banging. It don't make sense. Yeah, it don't make sense. Comply with the narrative that they wanted. Lost in the graph within my own garment. Shaped from the world within with no promise. Speak how I feel for real. I'm just honest. I'm just honest. I said, yeah, comply with the narrative that they wanted. Lost in the graph within my own garment. Shaped from the world within with no promise. Speak how I feel for real. I'm just honest. Baby, just honest. I'm with Cross, hopping down on that stage, yeah. Already know what I say, y'all. You in trouble. It's a marathon, no sprint. Shout out to Nipsey Hussle. Hey, let's go.
Salute everybody coming in the chat. Salute to the king. The king is in the building. We in the building right now. We're going to build. We want to talk. I was talking to King earlier that I was, like I said, a lot of stuff. I read a lot of stuff, but just wasn't aware. And we sit back and we think about a lot of stuff in our culture that holds us back. One of these things right here is a lot of people don't know. And like King said, he knew. It's back in those days, they had what is called the slavery Bible. Now, a lot of y'all don't know that the slavery Bible didn't have all the excerpts in there, and they lacked about probably 900 stories, not stories, but 900 pages and things of that nature. Salute, Mr. Smith. So what I'm gonna do is I want to show y'all this, and we just gonna build off of this. And what is making me start to understand is the meekness that we have and we don't know, because we are programmed when folks go through church. These are the programs that they're following. And again, we sit back, we look at movies like 12 Years a Slave, say, oh man, he was preaching, he was teaching on black folks, all that stuff, but he wasn't. He was only, yeah, it's still the slavery Bible. I have my type of talk. Yeah. So I'm going to break this down. I want y'all to watch this, and I'm going to show y'all. This is in a museum. It's only 3 of those kinds. And we're going to build from there. So salute to everybody coming in, and we're going to break it down.
Inside Washington's Museum of the Bible, a single volume that is like no other. The so-called Slave Bible. Remarkable not for what's in it, but for what's not.
So about 90% of the Old Testament's been removed, and about 50% of the New Testament's been removed. To put it another way, a normal King James has 1,189 chapters in it. The Slave Bible has only 232.
Missing are chapters and verses that might have encouraged uprisings. Book of Exodus, redacted. No story of Moses demanding Pharaoh, let my people go. On is Galatians.
Hit that
Free,
like button.
for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. And know Jeremiah, woe unto him that useth his neighbor's service without wages.
What they've left in are verses such as Ephesians 6:5, which is the famous verse, slaves be obedient to your master.
Looking at this Bible, it's hard to tell that anything's been taken out of it.
That's correct. I mean, it looks like a normal book. For many enslaved Africans, this would have been the first time they were exposed to the Bible.
A Bible selectively edited to instill obedience, using religion to underpin the horror of slavery.
When people encounter this exhibit, what lasting impression do you want them to leave with?
But we want to pass the message on that may this never happen again. The Bible itself is a whole book. It's not one that you get to carve up and use this piece or that piece.
The
y'all
slave
knew that
Bible designed
already.
to repress rebellion, but it didn't work. Enslaved people in the Caribbean constantly fought against slavery until emancipation.
I think it's very relevant to understand our history, not just American history, but our African American history, our roots, and how we got to this point.
A dark chapter in the history of the good book. Jeff Beck, NBC News, Washington.
Hey, NBC News fan.
All right, so we're going to break that down. So a lot of people didn't know that. Salute. We got Ja on here. Salute, Ja. Salute. Peace to Ja.
Peace to God.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here. We breaking down building. I wanted to build on this because a lot of people didn't know that.
Peace
And
to
I
God.
asked us, yep. And I asked him stuff like, why are we so meek? Why are we so this? Why are we so that? But then when you go back in the time, the programming, when you see in these old black churches still to this day, it's all about turning the other cheek. But then none of them, when you go back and look at, even back at 12 years a slave, supposedly, allegedly, Nat Turner, allegedly, I got to say that, allegedly, the story is that, you know, he was a preacher. He preached to people, then he turned on them. I think that he finally got a chance to read the white folks' Bible. And that was one of the reasons, because in the slave Bible, or the Negro Bible that people don't know, there was only 1,000 of them made. There's only 3 that exist to this day, and one is in that museum. And it takes out all of the things that gives you that one where Moses say, let my people go, the slaved and indentured servants. The Old Testament talk about indentured servants, and that you're not supposed to treat your slaves accordingly, and they were not your property. But then the Romans came in the New Testament, and then that's when Paul went around saying, hey, you guys are treating these people and you're doing all this wicked stuff. So that was where a lot of that came from. So what I'm going to do is, I showed that Bible. I'm going to jump around, but I got 2 other videos, and what I want to do is I want to show the Caribbean and the fight that they had to go through back in those days to try to stop that whole thing through the emancipation. So y'all, we're going to build today on this for like an hour or so. But I want to just really break this down because I thought it was very interesting. So y'all hit that like button. So let's watch this about the Caribbean and what was going on during that time.
Century, British merchants shipped around 3 million people from West Africa across the Atlantic to the Americas and sold.
Hit that like button, comment, subscribe.
They made £4 trillion from the unpaid labour alone. Portugal and Holland pioneered this slave route. Britain made a national fortune from it. Much of the Britain we know today was built with slave money. Ports, cities and canals. Even the Church of England admitted making money from the slave business. By the 19th century, a fifth of the British elite had made their fortunes from slavery. Among them, David Cameron's distant cousin, General Sir James Duff. The Liverpool merchants who founded what's now
the Barclays Center, y'all.
In 1833, when slavery was abolished, slave owners were paid £20 million in compensation for their loss of property. That's
wow.
£2 billion today. More than 10 million people died as a direct result of the Atlantic slave trade, but the survivors got nothing. West Africa, nothing. Now 15 Caribbean states, including Jamaica, have launched the first united campaign for reparations from Britain, France and Holland. They have suggested compensation equal to the sum offered to slave owners in the 1830s, £2 billion. They also want an apology.
Don't blush.
Recognition of the historic atrocity.
They hid in caves. My great-grandmother was born in a cave to make sure that she was not born as a slave. And that is what Britain perpetuated.
But the British government has refused to give either. David Cameron's first official visit to Jamaica has amplified calls on Britain to agree to reparations. Some argue that if Britain did pay, it wouldn't be the elite footing the bill but the tax-paying working classes. Others have said this was 200 years ago, it's in the past. Why should I pay now? In Jamaica, slavery was followed with a century of colonialism.
Most of the land is still in the hands of Europeans.
When the Brits left in 1962, 80% of the population were functionally illiterate. Male literacy remains 4 points below the global average. 19% of the country live in poverty. When historic crimes have generational victims, who should pay?
All right, we're going to build a little bit off of that, guys. So good morning to the kings. Good morning, y'all.
Grand Rising, bro. Grand Rising.
Yes. So
greatness to the
so looking at that from the Caribbean point of view and them fighting for it since the emancipation, and then they having the slave book. Like I said again, I was not aware. I knew about the history and what the fight was over there, but taking it and then like shit, like when you see buildings like the Barclays and all that, knowing that those folks got they millions, which we all know majority got it off the back of slaves, but I was not aware of that. The descendants of all these people, and like you see the Barclays and all these people that's got this money stored up, that they didn't rob people. They've been robbing us, and then like I said, from the Bible, taking that Bible and then making us slaves based off taking out excerpts, almost 1,100 other verses only having 200 verses in that book.
Well, they took out a whole lot more. They actually took out books of the Bible. We have 66 currently.
Correct.
In what we call the established or recognized or authorized King James Version. And
Facts.
From that, we have hundreds of other translations. So there was a war that happened in 749 AD, which lasted 499 years. And it was called the Roman Crusade Wars. And this is when they took and manipulated the scriptures of the original Bible.
Right.
The original Bible was written by the original man, us. The Bible that we now function up under are derivative scriptures taking out of the original 114 texts, and they have been concocted in order to give a certain social control of people on the planet. And that's been functioning now for the last nearly 900 or really 2,500 years. Nearly.
Yeah.
So because even in the day of Jesus, he was battling those who have already concocted the scriptures in that day and time. And that's why his words were so prevalent. That's why his words were the gospel, which is the Injil, which is the testimony of trials. And that's what we don't realize, is that it's been made like that for social engineering.
Without a doubt. And then people don't realize, like you said, the New Testament, the Old Testament, what they call the old law, like folks fail to realize, the old law is what was supposed to be established when the Roman Empire and them came. That's was the whole reason for Paul going around saying what he was saying, because they was all doing all that Sodom and Gomorrah shit, because they brought in a lot of that stuff and they re-altered, which I call the New Testament is the retro. Yeah, it's the remix. You know, it's like a Puff Daddy song.
Yeah, he was the enforcer, the reinforcer of the mission of Jesus. Jesus let them know that I didn't come to change anything. I came to fulfill the law of Moses, which means y'all niggas deviated. Y'all went another way and y'all been teaching another thing. And I come to remind the people of the truth. And that's why he said, seek ye first the truth, and the truth shall set you free, because the people was living in bondage of a lie.
Yeah, like I said, first you seek the truth and you know what I'm saying, in the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be, and all these things will be added unto you. Yep. So I'm gonna play this. Salute, Mr. Smith. I see you in the building. We're gonna build. I got this other video, and we're gonna break this down. This is it's a white guy right here, and he's gonna give what the old law was during that time and how we were manipulated. So I want y'all to watch this. Hit that like button, guys. Share this content.
Was very different from the practices of Europe and America in the 19th century and before, and the slave practices that we're used to as students of American history. Because
hit that like button, comment, subscribe.
A voluntary provision for people to enter this relationship on a voluntary basis to support people who had become destitute. It was like the Old Testament form of bankruptcy. And so debts were paid off by becoming a servant to somebody who had the means to bring you into their household. So usually the person initiated this, him or herself. And so nobody was kidnapped or nobody was forcibly induced into slavery. And in the Old Testament law, it was also a temporary provision. See, once the debts were paid, then the person was set free. And also, all debts were paid, and all slaves, therefore, were set free once every 7 years. Also, in the Old Testament system, these servants or slaves had numerous rights, and they were protected by the laws from many forms of harm or of abuse. Now, by contrast to that, slavery in the American colonies and in the Old South involved people being fully kidnapped. People were considered property along with their offspring. They had no rights whatsoever. They were subject to all kinds of rampant violence and abuse. The Old Testament system, it says very clearly that to kidnap or to sell is a capital offense. There was a death penalty if you killed a servant. And if you caused permanent damage to that servant, then they were given their immediate freedom. Another difference is that in American form of slavery, it was motivated by an economic advantage for the elite. You oppressed and exploited this labor to gain economic advantage for yourself. But in the Old Testament system, this form of slavery was motivated by a desire to find a way to help the poor, to find a way to help them out of their destitution.
So there y'all go. I just wanted to break off on that to give a little bit of understanding of why they took out some of that Old Testament and those laws and during that time. But I want to hear what y'all got to say. Mr. Smith, you coming in, what is your perspective on it?
I mean, my perspective on it, you got to remember, we was warriors when we came over here. So what they do, they use the religion to break us down. I mean, we knew all that. Would you want warriors reading pages in the Bible that say, well, you got such and such time as an indentured servant and you'll be free, blase, blase. They didn't want us to know that, which we already did when we came. It's just a generation that follow after that. So
right,
you wouldn't want it's just like, you know, like right now, man, if you want to take control over somebody, you give them a book. You don't want them to read certain pages. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, you got to think about it. We talking about criminals that came and kidnapped us. They wasn't even wanted in Europe. So they like, okay, hey, man, these guys come from over here, man. They would kill us. Come on, man. We were big brothers. I mean, I'm just saying, I would rip them pages out too if I put myself in their position. Why give these people any type of faith or any type of hope? We done broke them. And then we're going to use God to impress them. God said it's okay for me to do this to you. But they know we would have read them other parts. Like I say, I think the first wave knew, but they broke us down so bad.
Right.
I mean, we didn't want to know as soldiers, but it's just like with the Nat Turner thing. I'm like you. Maybe he got a hold to the real Bible. He was in the house with him.
That's actually what happened. Nat Turner was a slave. He was a slave where his parents were already killed. So the mistress found favor in his ability to have an intellect at a young age. He was a little boy. And what happened was she taught him how to read and gave him the Bible to learn how to read.
Gave him the slave Bible. She gave him a slave Bible.
She gave him the Bible as the Bible was conformed. What we got to realize is this: like white people telling our history is really an offense to us, because even my man that's giving us history, he's giving excerpts of culpability and systematic design. The Bible that we got right now is we can read it and get our own understanding like Nat Turner did. He figured out that, hey, this book says different and contrary to what they're preaching to us. And because of that, I'm supposed to rise against my slave master and kill him because of what he's doing. See, slave master,
but they said up under the old law, the slave was not to be treated or to be owned or to be abused or be beaten or none of that.
Right.
And that's
what he's leaving out is the relation of white history or European history.
He did say that. He did say that.
Meaning this. The part that he left out was this. The part that he left out was this. He's explaining the law of the Bible. We know the books of the Bible, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers, give you the examples or the activity or rules and laws in which you're supposed to have according to those that owe you debt. That's how we got the activity or the system of slavery. But the people that were the deceivers, the wicked people, they used it in America, only America, for a purpose of a whole nation, an economy, a system built on racism. And they used the Bible to trick us because they knew that, as Stone said, spiritually, we're the most spiritually connected, guided, functional, and possessive people on the planet because we're the original people. So the only way that you can get us to do everything you wanted to do perpetually was to give us a deity that was other than ourselves, but like our master. And they use a trickery in the Bible to do it. And now they're using these names when in reality, all of them knew that they created a system through an activity or under the guise of a religion. And they got God's people. In Europe is saying we ain't got nothing to do with it because Europe didn't do what America did. America didn't do what the Bible was saying doing. America created chattel slavery, bro. And they made us into something other than a human being, which is a beast, an animal, a nigger. And that's why we are the way we are. So we don't see the Bible like everybody else on the planet that got the same misinformed Bible. But go to Asia, they got Asian Jesus. Go to Latin America, they got Jesus. See, everywhere you go, their deity look like them, except the black people in America. That's our problem. And that's what they're leaving out. That most of us was already here before we got here. Them Dutch and English came over here and invaded. Then they allowed those Jewish people, the Ashkenazis, to set up the slave trade and funnel the people through so that they can build wealth free here.
I'm Job. We're gonna put the Jews first. We're gonna put it on the Arabs first. The Arabs, the first people that enslaved black people.
Yeah,
no, sir, not under the activity of business and chattel slavery.
I know, but it's still slavery.
What we went through was totally different than the science or the applicable knowledge of slavery. The applicable knowledge of slavery has rules to it. And over here, there was no rules. Grandma, grandchild, grandson, grandpop, everybody was slaves. And it wasn't meant to be like this. Even those that left us from our own tribes, they thought that we were going to be somewhere for 5 to 7 years, go do some labor and get free like everybody else. That was the science of slavery on the planet. But these devils created a new system, and it was to create a new world. And we are the only people that ever been through this. Nobody on the history of the planet has ever been through it. Just study our history. That's why that white guy saying it, he's leaving out certain things that we should all take to heed because that's what's affecting us today. We're reading the same Bible that everybody else got. We're just not reacting to it the same like Nat Turner did.
Well, you got to, and I want to give a quote, man. One of the famous quotes that I love from Jomo Kenyatta. You know what I'm saying? And it starts off as our task is to make ourselves the architects of the future, right? That's one of the things he said. And then here's his famous quote: "When the missionaries arrived, the Africans had the land and the missionaries had the Bible. They taught us how they taught us how to pray with our eyes closed. When we opened them, they had the land and we had the Bible." That's a famous quote.
Bishop Tutu said that at United Nations and repeated it to him to let him know.
Famous man, Jomo Kenyatta. Y'all check him out. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run this back one more time. We're gonna start this over and build, and we're gonna see exactly some of the things that they did leave out. And the guy did explain it. And like I said, it was just weird because I don't know. I just be looking at a lot of different shit, but I was just thinking about, I don't know why I was thinking about Nat Turner. I was like, maybe he saw something if it was true. But then I'm like, well, damn. And then I realized, I said, man, they couldn't have gave us the same one. So I just was like, for shits and giggles, I just Googled, was there a slave Bible? And then, like I said, most people, I didn't know that. Then I looked at it, the Negro for slaves, and there was only 1,000 of them made. They were only given to the elite, the ones that over here during that time, the Europeans that had the money that can make it happen. And then that's the ones, and then only to this day, allegedly, y'all, allegedly, there's only 3 still in existence. Allegedly.
Cross, have you ever read the Willie Lynch letter?
Oh, yes, definitely.
That should be read to everyone, especially our children. I taught it to my son when he was 9 years old. And that prevents our children from being raised without the proper knowledge of defense, how to protect their minds from the bad influence, inclination, indoctrination that the white man continually does to us in this society. So when you learn his philosophy on how we were pitted against each other psychologically through a system that we still exercise today, we'll start seeing that everything that we've been taught, we have to be retaught. The Bible tells us, or in the Christian faith, it says, you have to be reborn. See, in the name and the blood of Jesus Christ. And the name is what we profess, and the blood is our physical sacrifice, how we act out the mathematics that we supposed to profess. And that's the realest thing that we supposed to be doing, bro. The Bible is called a book of scriptures. And Black people, we need to start playing out our script. You pick a script out of the scriptures like a movie, and you play it out.
Well, I tell everybody, well, you got to remember everything track and trend. And like the old saying is, everything else is culturally biased, but math is universal.
Yep.
Math is a language, like you said, it's a language of its own. Yeah, live. So let's run this back, y'all. I appreciate everybody coming in here building. We're gonna continue to build. But yeah, I just thought this was a pretty interesting topic right here.
Museum of the Bible,
hit that like button.
The so-called slave Bible, remarkable not for what's in it, but for what's not.
So about 90% of the Old Testament's been removed, and about 50% of the New Testament's been removed. To put it another way, a normal King James Version has 1,189 chapters in it. The Slave Bible has only 232.
Missing are chapters and verses that might have encouraged uprisings. Book of Exodus, redacted. No story of Moses demanding Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Gone is Galatians. And the verse, "There is neither bond nor free, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus." And no Jeremiah. "Woe unto him that useth his neighbor's service without wages."
What they've left in are verses such as Ephesians 6:5, which is the famous verse, "Slaves, be obedient to your master."
Looking at this Bible, it's hard to tell that anything's been taken out of it.
That's correct. I mean, it looks like a normal book. For many enslaved Africans, this would have been the first time they were exposed to the Bible.
A Bible selectively edited to instill obedience, using religion to underpin the horror of slavery.
When people encounter this exhibit, what lasting impression do you want them to leave with?
But we want to pass the message on that may this never happen again. The Bible itself is a whole book. It's not one that you get to carve up and use this piece or that piece.
The slave Bible designed to repress rebellion, but it didn't work. Enslaved people in the Caribbean constantly fought against slavery until emancipation.
I think it's very relevant to understand our history, not just American history, but our African American history, our roots, and how we got to this point.
A chapter in the history of the good book. Jeff Bennett,
NBC News fan.
Yo, like I told you,
King, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking, man. Well, I was telling what Ja was saying. He's saying that we just did your service when Arabs had the Arabs abused the African slaves too, brother.
Yeah. Oh no! I'm not denying that part. I'm saying the indifference is that no one else created a system, a government, a country of perpetual slavery for us, except this slave.
You mean a business turning into a business,
right?
A money maker.
And we got to recognize also who we call in Arabs. Those people aren't those people aren't the black people of Arabia. Those are the Caucasian people that we enforced the religion of Islam upon, and now they live in that position, still warring and acting dysfunctional and savage as they always were. Those were Caucasians, they
were half original because most of them was dark as us, bro.
No,
they like the
right.
fucker.
Those are Caucasians, the same people right now. When you look at those people, the only thing they follow is the culture of law that we enforced. Remember, those are the same people that we speak about in the culture degree of our lessons. Those are the same people that we speak about in the born degree of the knowledge culture cipher lesson and the knowledge culture lesson. So
I have a clue.
Those are people that have went savage, just like until we came amongst them, they were burying their daughters in the sand up to their neck and having sex with camels. So I
hate to cut you off, John. So Mr. Smith, you was about to say something?
Yeah, I got an answer and I have a question. Because she said all black people weren't slaves. You're right. You had black slave owners in America. You had one named Joshua Ward. He was out of South Carolina.
And Jomo Johnson.
Yep.
Yeah, Jomo Johnson was the first.
It was a lot of black people that had what they call indentured servants. See, when we come to those plantations, see, they were like maids and butlers and all of that stuff in your home, but they weren't a part of the commerce. And that's the difference.
So do you wait a minute, what I'm saying, do you think the Irish got the memo? So when they came over here and they were slaves, they knew that after 7 years, they knew the real Bible.
Yeah, the Irish were being treated a certain way, but remember the Irish and the Italian and the French, when they initially came over here, the Irish, the German, and the Italian, those weren't white people. They were called the European nigger and the European negro. So they didn't get what we call social rights until 1904. But prior to that, they were the ones that they sent them down south because they didn't want them up north sharing in the capitalistic society that was already set up by the Dutch and the English. So they sent them down south to be managers, physical managers, overseers of the slave trade. And the Jewish people were the only people down south with the business set up. They were the business connection between the English and the Dutch in the north, in New York, New England, and all of that. And down south, they sent the savage, the Irish, the German, the French, and that's why when you see you see Django, when them Frenchmen had the dogs out there and they was making the dogs eat the black dude that was hiding in the tree. See, those were the underclass, because white people don't have racism, they have classism. So in the South, the North created a name for white people in the South back then, and it was called the cracker. And the cracker was because you had the authority at the crack of the whip. That was the only physical authority you had in this society. So you had that name, that definition now is called the uneducated poor white Southerner or poor white European is now a cracker. But at that social definition, the euphemism was that the only power you had was the crack of the whip over your slave. Anything else, you was my boy. And that's how the aristocrat, like the Donald Trumps, treated poor white people the same way Donald Trump tricked them into voting voting him into in the presidency. See, it's the same old tricks.
Right.
So they keep white people believing that if they keep their foot on our neck, they can prevent the rich white people from spending all their money on black people, which they said should be going to poor white people. And that's how they keep this system of ignorance through racism and social inequality going. So when we get together,
go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Let me ask you this, okay? We were talking about the slave Bible, right?
Right.
Remember that slave Bible wasn't just in America, though. It went to Jamaica. This is my question. Why did they have the heart to rebel? Like, let's take the Haitians. What's that, 1804 or something like that? Let's take the Haitians. How did they get the power? Because they read the same book we read. They were getting beat like we were getting beat. So what made us?
The Haitians didn't have a book. They had their own religion called voodoo. And that was an ancient African activity of religion. They didn't accept the Bible. They were fighting the Bible when Napoleon and them came. That's how they were able to rebel. It was to have a knowledge of self. That's why they're the first, and that's why they're still plagued by the European world, because they was the first in the Western world to completely rebel. As you can see, economically, they've been left destitute.
Well, I'm glad y'all. I'm glad y'all came into that.
But
we're gonna go into this one again.
Let me add to that is that in 1555, we first arrived in what we call now the West Indies, the Caribbean, as slaves. And it took a 64-year period from 1555 to 1619 in order for them to indoctrinate us over 3 generations to change who we were and how we were. So they had to train that rebellious state out of us before they brought us over.
One Willie Lynch from the Caribbean?
Well, Willie Lynch was he was based in the Caribbean. He was from Europe, but he was doing his job there. He was breaking
the
Bahamian Islands is where he owned his plantations.
Yeah, but they sent him to America for a reason, because we weren't listening, right? That's what I mean by
we were rebellion. We were rebelling because as human beings, we knew that slavery was wrong. So he had to create a system that mentally controlled us to prevent us from killing ourselves and killing them. We've been rebelling. They don't teach us about the Gullah Wars. Those people that you call the Geechees in the South Carolinas, those are the people that really created the Caribbean rebellions. And those were the first real African rebellions that they left alone. That's why the Geechee got their own language, their own culture, and their own history. And you don't mess with those people. Those are black people right now. If you're a descendant of those people, you know, in your family, there's a whole different type of fighting.
Right.
And I learned that in the boxing game.
Right.
Boxing brothers from the amateur to the professionals from the area. And the brothers built differently, like them brothers in Tennessee. Word up, Tuscaloosa, them brothers built differently,
yeah,
bro.
in T-Town. Yeah, shout out T-Town, boy. I used to be in T-Town. I'm not too far from T-Town. Yeah.
Like Oklahoma, bro. Like all of these parts had prominent bloodlines of the best people on the planet. If you recognize in America, where do all the best athletes come from? The Western Hemisphere of the planet.
Yeah.
See? Yeah, you take all of the sports, bro. The only one we don't master is the endurance sport, because the Kenyans and the Ethiopians got it on lock by nature. Their lungs are wider by environment. So they got it locked on by nature. But everything else, we run faster, we jump higher, we stronger, we fight harder. We do everything more scientifically different, because we are a different people. We're the tribe of Shabazz that's been taken out of the Bible.
Well, I got one more question there. Let's take Haiti out of it. What about Jamaica, like we was listening to a while ago? Because
that's why. Hold on, before y'all get into that, let me segue into that. That's why I want to play that. Let me play that video, and then y'all can speak. Y'all can speak on that. Y'all hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe.
British merchants shipped 3 million people.
Hit that like button.
Slavery. They made £4 trillion from the unpaid labour alone. Portugal and Holland pioneered this slavery. Britain made a national fortune from it. Much of the Britain we know today was built with slave money. ports, cities and canals, even the Church of England has admitted making money from the slave business. By the 19th century, a fifth of the British elite had made their fortune from slavery. David Cameron's distant cousin, General Sir James. The Liverpool merchants who founded now Barclays Bank were slave traders. In 1833, when slavery was abolished, slave owners were paid £20 million in compensation for their loss of property. That's £2 billion today. More than 10 million people died as a direct result of the Atlantic slave trade, but the survivors got nothing. West Africa, nothing. Now 15 Caribbean states, including Jamaica, have launched the first united campaign for reparations from Britain, France and Holland. They have suggested compensation equal to the sum offered to slave owners in the 1830s, £2 billion. They also want an apology, recognition of the historic atrocity.
They hid in caves. My great-grandmother was born in a cave to make sure that she was not born as a slave. And that is what Britain perpetuated.
But the British government has refused to give either. David Cameron's visit to Jamaica has amplified calls on Britain to agree to reparations. Some argue that if Britain did pay, it wouldn't be the elite footing the bill, but the tax-paying working class. Others have said this was 200 years ago, it's in the past. Why should I pay now? In Jamaica, slavery was followed with a century of colonialism.
Most of the land is still in the hands of Europeans.
When the Brits left in 1962, 80% of the population were functionally illiterate. Male literacy remains 4 points below the global average. 19% of the country live in poverty. When historic crimes have generational victims, who should pay?
So there you go, Mr. Smith. So you wanted to ask him a question about Caribbeans and said basically like that video.
Yeah, because, you know, even back in the slavery days, they still, I mean, Josh said they came with their own religion, but wasn't their religion the same, our religion in America? Because some of the slaves that was in the South, they pushed them even more further in Mexico, in Venezuela, in Jamaica, in Cuba, and so on, the Bahamas. What I'm saying, why did they have that sense of pride to want to fight back? Like, and we didn't. I mean, what was the difference? Because like I was saying with Willie Lynch, he came from the Caribbean, so I'm pretty sure whatever he was doing over there, he did a good job of it. That's why they called him up to America. Hey, teach us how to do what you do.
Yeah, his philosophy was psychological.
Still there?
Huh?
Jai, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
King, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I'm right here.
Stone, you
right
hear me?
here. My bad.
Yeah, I hear everybody.
I couldn't.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, something must have been wrong with mine. I couldn't hear nobody. Interesting. That's weird. Okay, my bad. Could you repeat that
Stone,
again?
What happened was that we were uprising over here in America. See, Nat Turner wasn't the only one. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we never stopped striving. It just wasn't. It was a small minority of us that was functioning on an organized level. You had to overcome 300 years of fear that was already instilled in us through that indoctrination period. You feel like if it's a science, if I take your children from you when you have them, before they really know you or get the keen knowledge of you, and I take them from you as babies, infants, as soon as the mom has them. Now I take that child and put it in another environment. That child becomes a product of that environment. Then I take their children and I place their children in another environment. That child becomes another environment. If the only thing that stays consistent is the authority of who changing them, soon those children become under the expected authority of anyone that looks like the person that's always been exchanging them. So the person that controls the environment controls the mentality or the activity of the people. And that is what's been happening for nearly 510 years. And that's physical slavery. We're not talking about the worldwide dominance, because they have permeated every nation on the planet, bro, with the same ideology, the same enforcement. The only difference is that those people wasn't changed from their environments. Neither was
But
they
what makes
separated
us, do you think they kept us in place or in line was because of religion?
Well, they kept us in place so that we wouldn't wake up. Like if you take a man somewhere and plant him, if you put him to sleep, knock somebody out and bury him in a shallow grave, when they wake up, they can get right up because the grave is not deep enough.
And we got a question. Shay, hold on 1 second. Shay's got a question. She said, "Ain't the Caribbean people under the British royal family?"
British
Oh
rule.
yeah. Oh yeah. See, I look at it like that. I look at it. That's probably the only thing I agree with Dr. Umar.
What Caribbean people are you talking about? You talking about St. Thomas, St. Croix? No, they have the American.
Hold on a minute, John. Hold on, John. Let King. What you saying, King?
The Caribbean, like the St. Thomas, St. Croix, all that. They under USA now. They United States of America now. They want our colony. I go say our colonies, but sound like a colony.
Territories.
Well, our territories. We took it from the British.
They did what we could do right now. They took the islands. They made all the large islands. Spain
Salute Joe Mo, my homeboy Joe Mo.
Took their portion. French took their portion, and they began these competitions in plantations to breed us. Once slavery became illegal on the global market, they then bred us where we were at.
Let me say something. Let me say something about that. Because let me say something. Because my family from there. My family from St. Thomas and St. Croix.
Right.
Yo, who's talking? We got an echo.
Yeah, we got an echo. A job.
Yeah.
You got an echo.
Meet you real quick, John. Let me see something.
Meet you. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
All right. When I was saying my family, my father's side, I told you my great grandmother, they met on a plantation in St. Thomas. My great grandmother family on the plantation, they were Sicilian. You know what I'm saying? So I know pretty much the science.
Wait a minute, hold on for a minute, King. Break that down. I didn't know that. So they were Sicilian they owned a plantation over there. And
my great grandfather family, my great father was the son of slaves.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they was on a plantation when he was bringing it up. See, my great grandfather and grandmother was still alive. They'd be like 120 or something like that. They'd be old, like 20-something, 120 something.
Right. That's deep, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I met my great grandmother when my great grandmother passed when I was like 2 or 3, and she was over 100 then.
Damn.
Wow. Damn. Good.
I'm 40. I'm about to be 47 this month.
Right.
So I heard the stories. My great grandma told me the stories how she met my grandfather, how they ran away from the plantation together in St. Thomas and went to what part of Virginia was it? Lynchburg, Virginia.
Wow.
They went to Lynchburg, Virginia to start off, and then they made money in Lynchburg, Virginia.
I have a question for you. Did she ever tell you how did they get over the water to get here? When they ran away from the
boat.
Well, I know about boat, but I'm saying, like, did she tell you the story how they had to sneak away?
They snuck on a boat. They snuck on a fishing boat.
Wow.
They got away on a fishing boat. You know how you go fishing and they said they smell like fish and everything. When they got here, my great grandmother stole some money from her family, so that's how she was able to start in Virginia. And it was in Virginia for the first 20 plus years of their marriage. Then they went to Scotch Plains, New Jersey. And that's when they had my grandfather. That's when they had my grandmother rather.
Well, Shay got a question. She said the Bible comes from the Bible Society of London, the British Kingdom. Guess that's what she's asking. Or United Kingdom.
Nah, the Bible came when King Constantine supposedly got shot by an arrow. Remember, he was a pagan.
Right.
And they say he seen Jesus, so he made the Council of Nicaea to make them come up with a book. But he didn't make them come up with that book, in my opinion, because he believed. That's just because his people started believing. And then he didn't want no rebellion against him. So he made the whole thing.
Yeah, it was a political move.
Yeah, it was a political move. Yeah, it wasn't like, okay,
the Bible already existed.
You got to echo. Hold on for a minute. You got an echo in the background, John.
Yo, John, drop out, come back in, John.
Yeah, because you got an echo in.
All right.
You hear it now?
Nah, you good now. You good now.
All right. Yeah, it was a headset.
Okay.
The Council of Nicene came together and they took the already original text, and that's when they created what we now have as the King James Version.
Right.
Because Constantine used the cross that he claimed that he seen in a dream, that he claimed the crucifix, and that would be the sign in which he would lead the people or lead them astray. So he mixed in the paganistic rituals that the people were practicing along with the scriptures that the Bible had already presented, and he created now what we call our book or activity of the Christian or Christendom, because it's not Christianity, it's called Christendom because it's the rule of those who have hijacked or stole the religion of Christianity and used it for their dirty practices. So
let me ask you this. Ain't there where like Christmas?
Yes,
Valentine's
all of the rituals. Yeah, all of the rituals that we practice in the name of God come from that union, the Council of Nicene, as you educated.
Well, I mean, I was sitting there, and people don't know, like, even the days. Each day is to celebrate each god, like the god of Monday. You know what I'm saying? Like, people don't understand that.
Function under the Gregorian calendar.
That's right. Every day, Monday through Friday is a day to celebrate that God. People don't know that. You know what I'm saying?
This is
Saturday
conversation.
Sunday is the sun god. Saturday is Saturn.
Yeah, and Sunday is the sun god. Yeah, it's all Greek paganism.
All Greek.
Yeah,
and the Gregorian calendar is based on their philosophy. That's why we got 12 months instead of 13. That's why we have a leap year every 4 years. Because their time doesn't add up.
Right.
Their math don't add up. What happens if you're born in leap year?
Right. I always wanted to know that shit. I ain't gonna lie. I always wanted to know that. See, I think black is slow too. Like, well, what if you born in a leap year? So what? When you off, you will always be off.
Hey, they birthday switch. I don't know how to explain it all the way.
You can't.
I don't know.
It's like New Year's. New Year's is really not supposed to be in January. It's supposed to be when the new spring equinox comes.
That's right.
Because that means new life.
That's
However, our calendar year, the activity of recording of time, has been set at the Gregorian calendar, and that's global. So before you deal with the science of the Asiatic calendar, which is the oldest, and any calendar in between, you have to deal with the Gregorian calendar, which came from the Germanic science of the Germanic people. So we're now living in their activity of time, which is quickly dwindling away. However, we are in their time.
Yeah. And how you explain the who was that, the Aztecs or the Mayans? I know it was one of them when they came up with their sense of time in the calendar. And
mathematics. Those were original people.
Yeah.
Those were real original people.
Hold on. But the Mayans don't recognize themselves as original people. They recognize themselves as like Mexicans.
No. You looking at the modern day influence. When you look at the science,
I understand the science, yeah. I'm talking about right now how they don't got knowledge of self, how they definitely bond to.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I agree 100%. Like us.
A lot of people don't know that a lot of towns in Mexico is named after slaves. Yeah.
Man,
The
all you
first,
got
the
to do
first,
is look
hold
at
up. The
the
first
evidence.
president, listen, hold on one second. The
What's
first
brother?
president, listen, the first president of Mexico and Ecuador were black.
Facts.
Yep.
Yep.
Facts.
People don't know that.
And the evidence.
Yo, look, listen, I worked with Ecuadorians for since 2017 until I moved out to PA. And I'm gonna tell you, I met Ecuadorians darker than me. I'm thinking they black or Brazilian. Them motherfuckers, they don't know I'm from Ecuador. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And like, and I'm like, they call me, and they would call me a Mayate, like the white ones are called Mayates and shit, right?
Yeah.
The white ones. I'm like, y'all Mayates too, maricones.
No shit.
Y'all just as black as me.
Yeah.
Look, listen to what King said, Cross. You remember when you brought up Russia, right?
Yeah.
And how they got the museum of the saints.
The Bantu.
Yeah. They even got a black cross.
Yeah, exactly.
They got a black
hold on, y'all.
cross.
So now I'm gonna play this video now, and let's see what y'all think of this right here. Now, this is the video of the one white guy was trying to give his explanation from a, like you said, hit that like button.
The practices of Europe and America in the 19th century and before, and the slave practices that we're used to as students of American history. Because first of all, the Old Testament law allowed a voluntary provision for people to enter this relationship on a voluntary basis to support people who had become destitute. It was like the Old Testament form of bankruptcy. And so debts were paid off by becoming a servant to somebody who had the means to bring you into their household. And so usually the person initiated this, him or herself. And so nobody was kidnapped or nobody was forcibly induced into slavery. And in the Old Testament law, it was also a temporary provision. See, once the debts were paid, then the person was set free. And also, all debts were paid, and all slaves, therefore, were set free once every 7 years. Also, in the Old Testament system, these servants or slaves had numerous rights, and they were protected by the laws from many forms of harm or of abuse. Now, by contrast to that, slavery in the American colonies and in the Old South involved people being forcibly kidnapped. People were considered property along with their offspring. They had no rights whatsoever. They were subject to all kinds of rampant violence and abuse. But in the Old Testament system, it says very clearly that to kidnap or to sell somebody is a capital offense. There was a death penalty if you killed a servant. And if you caused permanent damage to that servant, then they were their immediate freedom. Another difference is that in American form of slavery, it was motivated by an economic advantage for the elite. You oppressed and exploited this labor to gain economic advantage for yourself. But in the Old Testament system, this form of slavery was motivated by a desire to find a way to help the poor, to find a way to help them out of their destitution.
Can I say something first?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, okay. John, I know you're going to disagree with me on this. That 7-year thing, I think that is a stretch. Because we was enslaving ourselves and beating the shit out of ourselves. Going to other tribes, raping the women, killing the kids. So that be the misconfusion with me sometimes. We get mad that they did it to us, but we was doing it to us too.
Hey, hold up. See, I'm gonna say something to you right now, Stone. And don't get mad because I'm just shooting a shot at you though, bro.
Yeah.
All right. You got the white woman, right? You love the white woman, right? You love your white woman, right?
Hey, I knew that was coming.
I
knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming.
I knew it. I swear to God. I knew it. I kind of felt like a hypocrite.
I'm gonna tell you, listen what I'm saying. Listen what I'm saying. You sympathize with them. I can't sympathize with that shit. I know what they did to us was worse. That's all I'm saying,
but
bro.
we sympathy. Nah. Listen. I question my girl people and them all the time. They come from England and Poland. Trust me. Believe me. I ain't the first brother that entered the family. But one thing you is kind of right. Maybe I do sympathize in a way because they never had no damn slaves. They was the bottom of the bottom. Even when they came to America, they wasn't no. Look, man, my girl got a book from the 1500s. It got from the first person that was on the boat all the way to present time in 2023. Her kid's name. That's how far the book go back, right? I ain't saying they didn't. I ain't saying they did. But to the knowledge, like her grandma just died like 2 years ago. She was 100-something years old. She had a brother. You did what I'm saying. So
but like you say, maybe that was Ja was saying back in those days they was called the European niggas and the European Negroes.
I know a lot of Polish people. And all the Polish people I know, I've never been a racist Polish person in my life.
No,
I met more racist Italians than Polish people.
I got a Polish brother, man.
Do you know in Poland you get punishable up to 5 years in jail if you even say the word nigga?
What we got to recognize is the culprit, bro, and that's what I always point my finger to is the guy that's. Remember this: black is not really a color of a person. Neither is white. Black and white are two psychological cultures that we act out and live out. So when
original
you're
and unoriginal, original and
black,
unoriginal,
right? When you're black, you're functioning for the purpose of being anti-white or anti-white supremacist in this society.
Right.
When you're white, you're functioning for the support and the advocacy of what or the social control of white supremacy. So when you see a Karen that's miseducated, looking fucked up, bad health, no money, stand in the middle of a supermarket and cry like she's been attacked by a black person that's educated, making 6 digits, driving a Bentley or a Benz, she cry and that person get knocked in the head, arrested, and their life get taken away. That's the world we live in called white supremacy, under the rule of white supremacy. So when you're being white, like I tell my brothers that got white women, hey, as long as your woman is cultured black, then you should have an activity of peace, respect, and advancement for your people. See, as long as you're doing that, you're responsible to your people. Enjoy your life. Love what loves you and makes you happy, but protect you while being happy. Don't be a savage in the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
No, that's some real spiel.
Hey, but I knew that was coming, Key, and I knew it was gonna come from you. Hey, I swear to God. I swear to God.
You know, King the bodyguard.
Yeah.
Bodyguard.
Bodyguard.
Nah, man, but I appreciate y'all building on this. This is what I want to build today, man. I just, like I said, you know me, man, I be all over the place with different stuff. But yeah, I like this, man. I like the way this went, man. This was deep, and I hope everybody got it, man. Salute to the people that came in, new people that came in the chat, that's starting to support the chat, understanding the movement and where we trying to go, man. So I appreciate, everybody coming. Also subscribe to the channel, the Kingsman panel. Subscribe to the King of New Jersey, Mr. BTB TV, Mr. Eastwick, where he bullied the bullies. You know what I'm saying? Come over there. We build. We do all types of stuff over there. You know what I'm saying? Ja, subscribe to Ja over there. He's going to start coming on here. I want him being a part of this Kingsman panel that we're going to have going on. Mr. Self, of course, you know what I'm saying? And all the mods and the people, you know what I'm saying? This is 2023. We're just bringing awareness of where, sometimes I look at stuff and then I have great men that get on this panel and can be able to build and articulate and have something to say instead of back and forth yelling, because at the end of the day, that's not what I'm on. That ain't what nobody's on. We grown men, man. We stand 10 toes down and we hold ourselves accountable and we unapologetic at all times. So again, I want to go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and let King go ahead. I was gonna say I'm gonna let you speak.
All right, Cross. I'm gonna hit you and Scott on a 3-way right after this call, so you answer the phone. You know what I'm saying? I build with y'all outside. And I'm gonna say peace to Ja, forgive us that knowledge and stuff that he pertain. Peace to Mr. Smith. And his ass, you know what I'm saying?
You know
I
his
was
ass.
waiting again. Yeah, what you
He's waiting.
Hold up, Mr. Smith and your sympathizing ass, but I appreciate you too, bro.
Yeah, right.
Chat,
That's
man.
real spill.
Thank you
That's
for having me
real
up here,
spill.
Cross. Appreciate it, man.
You already know, God. You already know. Ja, would you like to say something, King?
True indeed. Peace and blessings and grace to the black man and black woman, the king and queen of the earth, and all in between. I just want us to always be mindful that there's nothing wrong with studying the Bible. Just study it with a conscious mindset and not an impoverished or an imprisoned mindset. And that's what we've been given through the activity of slavery. So look for the truth in the activity of the book and be unbiased. Don't look at it based upon the characters we've already been introduced to, because that's how they tricked us in the beginning. We wrote the original Bible. We have to live our own script through the Bible in order to get the reality from it. So with that, I chose to be the character Joshua a long time ago, having knowledge of self, but a warrior at heart and a soldier in the hand. And that's what I continue to live as. And I pray that we all choose our scriptures and live them wisely and be righteous in our pursuit of righteousness, at least be right. Peace and love to my family, especially the chat, Black Widow, my boy Scott, you already know, Shady, you already know, baby girl, and definitely Scott, my boy Smith, my boy King, my boy Plug. Peace.
Mr. Smith.
Peace.
First and foremost, I want to say, screw King. You know, that's my guy, man. I want to say, screw King. That's my guy. I knew he was coming. I love King, though.
Shit. You know that. You already know. You know how we rock. You know how we rock.
Yeah, I'm a boy.
Cross gonna text me. Don't do it. Like, nah.
I said, don't be doing that. I told him, I said, don't you do it. Don't do it. I just know his ass, dog. You know it. That's why I said, hold on. Especially with that shit, that pardon self. That shit right there, that's the trigger. Y'all better listen. Pardon self. That means that's the Italian. Look, that's the Italian coming out his ass. He finna talk that straight shit.
Now. It's Sicilian. It makes sense. It's Sicilian. I get it. Yeah, that's my guy,
and
man.
And it be calm as hell. You're like, yo, pardon self. And then he just say it. I'm like, bro, you can't pardon self. You wanted to say this shit. What the fuck? What the fuck? You know what I'm saying?
I love King, but screw King. And do it. Don't tell him don't do it. I knew he was going to do it anyway. He like bad little kid. He touch that hot stove and he want to touch it anyway. Go ahead. I was ready to fight.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's out of love. It's all out of love.
That's my guy. To my boy Job, my boy Kraus, and I love these type of conversations. That's why when I seen the title, I had to get on here. I was itching like I was a dope fiend.
I already know.
To get on here and support everybody in the chat, man. The mods, Black Widow, Miss BTBTV, Shay. You already know Mikey, Scott, my boy Scott. We out here, man.
And hold on. And shout out to JJ. Get the
You knew he was gonna say JJ. You already know. Oh JJ, boy, I tell you. Man, salute to everybody rocking with me, man. All the mods, the people in the chat, y'all know who y'all are. The new people again that came in. Thank you for showing support, man, on the channel, man.
BTBTV, I love you.
Peace, Black Widow. Black Widow, peace, Black Widow. I love you. Already, man. Salute to y'all, man. Peace.
Hey, man, we got to get a national meet and greet, bro.
We got that. I'm down. We're going to do that. We're going to set that up. We got some big shit we need to do anyway.
Emma Smith, you can bring your Polish wife too, man.